Hey there, fellow readers. This is Ramble Collector here, back with another book review for all of you today. And this one will not be a typical review for me, as this will be covering another work of an author that I personally follow, R.I. Polsgrove. Now, for those of you who have followed my channel for a while, you probably know that I'm a massive fan of R.I. Polsgrove's works, and they have been a major supporter for the channel. As a matter of fact, if you're curious, I have a link to a playlist of all of their works that I've done on this channel. I will leave a link to that playlist at the end of this video, if you are curious to learn more after this. Now, today we are going to be covering the 81-page short story, The King's Choice, a recently published work of theirs that I was lucky enough to grab a copy of. Now, this one in particular was a neat little departure from what their normal works are, as they wanted to experiment a little bit more with their writing and see how well they do with less darker romances, let's put it that way. Let's find out how they did. So to begin with, for my overall thoughts, I personally believe The King's Choice was a very sweet and short romance featuring a king and a prince and their growing attraction for each other. The book overall, like I said before, is 81 pages, making for a very quick read. I'm not kidding when I say I started this book and finished it in a single day. It is literally a story you can finish within an hour, if you wish. And while normally fluffy romances are not my cup of tea, this particular story did not drag itself out for too long and kept it short and to the point, which is something I greatly appreciated. Granted, there were a few minor spelling and grammar mistakes, but it didn't break the overall immersion for me. In my personal opinion, the fact that it kept it short and didn't drag itself out for too long was a greatly appreciated factor for me. Now, that does not mean I am not, how do I put this? I'm not against romance, if I may, but I don't exactly like it when they continuously drag out these romance stories to the point that it's just like, will you get on with it already? I prefer romances to be part of a main story plot. They're in there, but they don't exactly play a major role, if I may. Now, I am more partial to spicy romances myself, possibly due to my adult mind, but I'll leave that up to you all. But the story here between our two main characters, that being Prince Kaisen and King Elias, with King Elias having recently ascended to the throne after his father's passing in the prologue, it was genuinely wholesome to watch these two bond over just the simplest of things, whether it be sharing stories together or going out into the kingdom with King Elias's younger sister, as well as just them talking, hanging out, getting to know each other. I loved the seemingly natural chemistry that these two had, as well as watching the sister learn that their connection with their kingdom is not exactly the greatest. Because of this, it creates a disconnect, and honestly, that is a major flaw that you see with a lot of world governments, whether today or in history. When the monarch or ruler or leader becomes disconnected from the common folk, it can create a lot of resentment and build up to possible rebellions or coups d'etats. Which I'm glad we didn't get that here, at the very least, because it would have really dragged it out. But it's just an interesting concept to me. We see this all the time in other literature examples, such as, for instance, Game of Thrones is a very popular one. There are other examples that I could bring up, but I will, for the sake of time, not go into them. But like I mentioned before, this one was very short, very fluffy. I liked it. But now let's move on to the random thoughts here, if I may, just to ramble a little longer. Okay, random thoughts here. Me personally, how do I put this? I am very much kind of picky with LGBTQ stories. They are still a new branch that I'm trying to explore, and some of them are actually very genuinely fascinating with the stories they tell. If you check out my Pride Month Reviews playlist, you'll see that I've covered a wide variety of different LGBTQ stories, all of them ranging from absolutely wild to just sweet. But it's still a new branch of romance that I am wanting to actively explore, mostly because of curiosity. And to be quite honest with you, there's been a lot of good stories out there, and how do I put this? I'm personally very excited to see where our R.I. Polsgrove will go from here, because this is a definite departure from the normal works of the Dead Souls series, which has been one of my personal favorites to follow and one that I'm eagerly awaiting the next book every single time. But seeing how they're trying to branch out and explore new ways to write, I'm kind of excited to see where they'll go from here. Either way, let's move on to the overall score, shall we? Personally, I feel comfortable putting The King's Choice as a solid 9 out of 10. Like I mentioned before, there were a few grammatical and spelling errors here and there, but again, it's not enough to break the immersion to the story, which again is very short. Do I recommend you pick this story up? Well, I will leave that up to you all. But if you're curious to see some of the other works by R.R. Polsgrove that I've done in the past, I will leave a link to that playlist here, which you will see above my head. Or, if you're curious to see some of the other book reviews that I've done in the past, I will leave a link to that playlist as well. I genuinely enjoyed reviewing another indie work by this author, and I cannot wait to see what they have in the future. More importantly, you guys, thank you so much for listening. If you stuck around this long to the end of the video, it really means a lot to me that you will choose to listen to this crazy man's ramblings about just all forms of literature, in my opinion. And I can guarantee you guys there will always be more books in the future that I'm willing to review or talk about, and some that if you suggest them to me, I will actively seek out, read them, and review them for all of you. This channel would not be possible without any of you guys, or girls. And I wholeheartedly appreciate that. Once again, you guys, if you like this video, feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts on this video down below, or subscribe if you're interested for future content. This is Rambling Collector signing off for now. Have a great day, fellow readers.